Okay, so quick point to make before we begin. I wrote this in the chat, but I just want to clarify. The goal today is we're going to go through these sheets. Again, it's the Shulchan Aruch. The only real difference between these sheets and the Shulchan Aruch is this Shulchan Aruch Oiz V'Hadar has an introduction to each sif. I typed up two of them because they're very helpful. The rest is basically inside the Mechaber. We'll go through this today. Next week, Bez Hashem, we'll begin the last sif. We'll finish up this sif. That'll be the completion of the Siman. We'll review, and then we'll do the first test. This is by far one of the longest and more challenging Simanim in all of Basar B'Chalav. After this, the next couple are super easy, super practical. We'll fly through. It'll be very nice. So today we're going to be dealing with Sif Tes and Sif Yud of the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Pei Zayin. So Sif Tes and Sif Yud are dealing with the following premise. Very simple. I'll say it outside, and then we'll go through it. So you have a cow, right? You have a baby cow that's drinking milk from the mother. Now, it goes in the mouth, it's milk, yeah? At some point it leaves the body as urine. It's clearly not milk anymore. The question is, at what point, at what stage inside the cow is it no longer considered milk? It's considered refuse, or considered waste. So the practical application is, you cut open a baby cow, and you find in the keva is one of the four stomachs. You find in the keva, I think the keva has rennet. I think it's rennet. Is that the name of the? I don't know the name of the stomach, but I think it has the stomach lining is called rennet. I think, if I'm not mistaken. But it's able to make cheese. But bekitzer, you open up the keva and you find milk in the keva. The question is, what is the status of that? Is it still milk, or is it already digested by that point not milk? So what's the nafkamina? There's a nafkamina in Sif Yud, but in Sif Tes it's very practical. Can I take this milky, cottagey, cheesy thing that's already beginning to break down? Can I cook it in meat? It's very simple. You find milk in the keva. Is it milk or is it not milk? Can I cook it in meat? So let's see inside. So you have over here, before we do the mechaber inside, so I told you this Shulchan Aruch Oiz V'Hadar is really amazing. They write an introduction to each sif. So the introduction to Sif Tes and Sif Yud I typed up in front of you, but it's just you'll listen. The mechaber says, B'Mishnah u'Gemara. The Mishnah and Gemara danu oidois. The Mishnah and Gemara discuss chalav hanimtza bekevase shel behema shenishchata. You shecht an animal, you open it up, and you find in the keva, in one of the stomachs, you find milk. The question is, im adayin din chalav alav, is it still considered milk? Or shenechshav mu'ukal, or is it considered decomposed, and is it considered waste? It's like beginning of urine or beginning of excrement. The eine ele porish. Perish is waste. The eine chalav. So that's the shaila in the Gemara and the Mishnah. Now it's obviously negeya. Can I take this and cook it in meat? V'nechlu sham harishonim bigger size ubebir maskonas hasugya. The rishonim talk about it. They go through the sugya, and this is their conclusion. Das Rashi. Rashi's opinion is shedin hacholav shebekeva kecholav gamar. Rashi's opinion is very binary. It's milk. Doesn't matter whether it's liquid. Doesn't matter whether it's cottage cheese. Whatever the consistency is, it's milk. Straight up Rashi, it's milk. Good. Rif v'harambam. The Rif and the Rambam is the opposite. They say shecholav shebekeva nisbatul matayris cholav ve'inenech shevel parish ba'alma. They say it's not milk, it's waste. So you have Rashi on one side, you have the Rif and the Rambam on the other side, and then there's the middle shita, which is Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam says if it's a liquid, if it's still a liquid when you open up the stomach, then it's milk. If it's already curdled like a cottage cheese, then it's waste. So you have Rashi, the Rif and the Rambam, and Rabbeinu Tam. B'divrei ha-mechaber v'ha-ramah, the mechaber and ramah muvoim shitas harif v'shitas Rabbeinu Tam. The mechaber and the ramah cite the views of Rabbeinu Tam and the Rif, meaning the mechaber holds like the Rif that it is not milk at all, whether it's liquid or not, it is not milk. You can cook it in meat. The ramah will quote the shita of Rabbeinu Tam that there's a distinction between liquids and curdled. They do not quote Rashi. The only one who quotes Rashi is the Taz. So that is the background. Again, if there's any questions, let me know. But that is the basic background of this sif. You open up the keva, that stomach, and you find in the keva a liquidy, milky substance that the animal obviously drank before it died. The question is, what is it? Is it milk or is it not? So you have three different opinions amongst the Rishonim, and we'll see there's three different opinions amongst the poskim. You have the Mechaber, the Ramah, and the Taz. That's it. So the Mechaber says, Shulchan Aruch Sif Tes. Chalav hanimtza bekeva. You open up a baby cow, and you open up that stomach, and the reason why you're opening up that stomach, as we'll see in a moment, is because that stomach lining has the ability to make cheese. It has an enzyme I think it's rennet. I could be completely off. I'm pretty sure it's rennet. But anyway, it has a the stomach lining of the keva. If you put it in milk, it'll turn into cheese. It has an enzyme that's able to curdle it into cheese. So they would open up that stomach line and get the stomach lining. So you open it up and you find a milky substance. It says the mechaber einoi chalav. It is not milk. Whether it's liquid, whether it's curdled, it is not milk. Umuter levashel by basar, and you're allowed to cook meat in it. Afilu b'tzol shaba, even if it's liquidy. There might be marasayin. Okay, put marasayin aside. I'm talking about basar b'chalav. It's not basar b'chalav. That's the shita of the Shulchan Aruch, which is the view of Rabbeinu Tam and the Rif. The Rif and the Rambam, that it is not milk, whether it's liquids or solids. Comes the Ramah. Then the Mechaber says v'yesh mi she'oser. There are those that disagree. Which is those shitas? So the Mechaber himself tells you Toisvis v'Rosh Rabbeinu Tam, which is the Rabbeinu Tam shita, that there's a distinction between liquids and solids. Liquids is milk, solids are not. So you have the Shulchan Aruch has the first opinion, then you have v'yesh mi she'oser. Now, by the way, there's a general rule. It's good to know. Whenever the Mechaber says a standard view, v'yesh mi, whatever, we go with the standard view. It's called stam v'yesh halachic stam. So because he brings down the first opinion that it's not milk, and then yesh mi she'oser, he doesn't go with the yesh mi she'oser. So the Mechaber shita is it's not milk. Says the Ramah, v'chei noyagim. But the Ramah says we follow the shita of Rabbeinu Tam, that there's a distinction between liquids and solids. So you have the Mechaber who says that it's not milk at all, whether it's liquids or solids. Then you have Rabbeinu Tam, which is the shita of the Ramah, is that if it's liquids, it's milk. If it's solids, it's not milk. That's it. Those two views. Now, if you look at the Taz in Sifkat and Zayin, the Taz cites the view of Rashi, who says that even solids is milk. Says the Taz, Pirush, when the Mechaber and the Ramah say that Yesh Mi She'oser, this view that it's considered milk, Pirush B'tzolol Dafka. This is Rabbeinu Tam, that it's only considered milk when it's clear. V'ludas Rabbeinu Tam, B'Rashi Oiser Afil B'Karsh. But Rashi shita is that even if it's curdled, it's milk. So again, you have three opposite extremes. You have the Mechaber, never milk. Ramah, sometimes. And then you have Rashi, always milk. Says the Taz, that's the shita of Rashi. The loisfir le pir shab'alma, when he does not believe it's decomposed and it's waste. Upasak Ramah Rabbeinu Tam. The Ramah follows Rabbeinu Tam that there's a distinction between liquids and solids. Umarshal Perakol Basar Siman Kuf Zayin Pasuk Rashi, but the Marshal follows Rashi. Vizel Lashono. This is the words of Rabbeinu Marshal. Kula Gedoylo Hater B'Karush. It's a very big leniency to take this milky, cottagey, cheesy thing and to say that it's not milk and to cook it in meat. Kimiyodeya Mashir Akrisha. How do you know what's considered curdled? Right? I'm telling you, curdled is okay, but liquids is not okay. Who's to know what's liquid, what's curdled? The whole thing, Efsher, Afilu Svarase, Dafki Mukarish, Vimachluchas Kalav Klal. Maybe it has to be Mamish a solid. Who knows? Says the Marshal, Ha'ikr Karashi. And the Ikr is like Rashi. So you have these three different views, but we're going to focus more on the Mechaber and the Ramah. The Mechaber shita is that all the milky residue that's found in the stomach lining of the animal is not milk. And the Ramah says there's a distinction between liquids and solids. Liquids is milk, solids is not milk. That is Sif Tes of the Mechaber. And again, the focus of the Mechaber was, can I take this milky residue that you find in the stomach lining and cook it with meat? That's Adkan Sif Tes. Good. Now we're going to jump into Sif Yud. Now Sif Yud is what we take Sif Tes and you got to turbocharge it a little bit. It gets a little bit more complex. There is an introduction from the Ois V'Hadar. Again, we'll read it together. But like I said, this is built on what we just learned. Let me ask you a question. Okay. I open up the stomach lining of the cow. I find this milky substance. There's this discussion we just had, is it milk or not? Okay, so Shiloh is milk. Can I use that to make cheese? So, yeah. If it's milk, great. If it's not milk, also great. It's cheese, whatever. There's no, it's either milk or it's waste. So could you make cheese out of it? Sure, why not? Here's the issue. What if it sat in the cow for 24 hours? Or what if I salted it in the cow? Now here's the shayla. Now we're getting into issues. I said, let it sit in the cow's stomach lining for 24 hours. Now the halach is, we learned this the first time we learned together. I told you kavush. Kavush means that if something sits with a liquid for 24 hours, it's as if they're cooked together. So if I open up the stomach lining, and it's been a day already, and I find milk, this residue, cheese, cottage cheese, whatever it is, it's been sitting there for 24 hours, can I then use that to make cheese? So this should be very much totally in what we just learned. Meaning, if it's considered milk, like the Shita of Rashi, or like the Ramah said by liquids, if it's considered milk, that means that you had milk sitting in a cow for 24 hours, so it's mamish like it's cooked together, so now it's basar b'chalav. You just took that basar b'chalav and made it into cheese. That's a problem. Can't do that. L'chora, the only time you could use that milk after it's been sitting in the cow for 24 hours, or after it was salted together, is if you believe it's waste, then we could have a discussion. So let me just make that clear. If you believe that it's considered milk, it's for sure an issue. There is no shaila. Make that clear? Because if it's milk, meaning if you hold like, let's say it's liquid, and according to the Ramah, liquid is milk, mamish. It's mamish chalav. So that means that it's chalav sitting in a cow for 24 hours. It's as if it's cooked together. So that means that milk was cooked with meat. It's basar b'chalav. You then use that to make cheese. Major problem. Correct? Yeah? I'm open to take questions there because today is a little tricky, yeah?
Sorry.
It's fine.
You are?
Yeah, it's fine.
So then you shouldn't be able to have the meat either, according to the Ramah situation.
You shouldn't be allowed to what?
You shouldn't be able to eat the meat either because it's basar b'chalav.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, of course other problems. We're just focusing on the cheese. You're right. It's issues. No, because the stomach lining is meat also. Stomach lining is basar also. So that means that milk is basar b'chalav. You can make cheese. Here's the question. What if it's curdled? And Rashi holds curdled is not milk. So you ask yourself, it should still be a problem. Why? Because curdled is pariv, right? So you cook pariv with, think of it as a noodle. It's not milk. What is it? It's a noodle. I don't know. You cook it with meat, so now it's considered meat. And then you made cheese. It should be a problem either way. The Mechaber and the Ramah are going to introduce to us a big chiddush, and that is that if you believe that it's considered waste, meaning if it's not milk, what is it? It's excrement or it's waste, whatever it is. It's so disgusting that even if you cook it with milk, it doesn't become meat. It's what I wrote it in the thing. This is for the first time I was learning together. If Shag was here, you would remember. He would say, it's perpetually parav. I don't even know if that still works, but it's always parav. In other words, if you believe it's milk, then it's basar b'chalav. If it's not milk, then b'diavad is going to be fine. You say, why is it fine? If it's not milk, it's waste, so it's pariv. You cook pariv with meat, it's meat, right? You have to wait 6 hours, right? You cook, something with a chicken, it's chicken. So if you cooked it, if it sat there for 24 hours with meat, it should be like pariv with meat, which is meat, and then you made cheese out of it. Should be a problem either way. The answer is no. If you believe that it's waste, it means it's so disgusting, it cannot become, it's pariv forever. So therefore, our real discussion, so just to summarize, we'll see it inside. If you believe it's milk, it's a major problem. If it's not milk, like the Mechaber, for the Svardim, the Mechaber believes it's not milk, whether it's curdled or not. According to the Mechaber, it is technically fine. If you let it sit there for 24 hours, so it's like it got cooked with meat, but it's so gross, it's so disgusting, it's pariv forever. If you then,
It's not inedible?
It's not inedible, but it's a chiddush, it's so disgusting that it cannot be makabel. Any meat flavor that's being pumped into this curdled whatever is so gross, it doesn't become, it stays pariv. It kills the meat flavors. It stays pariv forever. Then if you use it to make cheese, it's going to be okay. Now I'll make it clear. Don't do this. This is all b'diavad. You should not be doing this. If you actually let it sit there for 24 hours, you should not be using that to make cheese. You should not, as we'll see in a moment, even if you let it sit there for an hour, it's not a good thing. Because, as we'll see, the whole 24-hour concept, that after 24 hours, it's as if it's cooked, that's when things are not spicy or not very, very, very potent. When things are super potent, even an hour or two could be an issue. The point is, this is not lichatchila. This entire sif is b'diavad. B'diavad, if you let it sit there for 24 hours, or if you salted it together, and then you use that to make cheese, what is the halacha? That's the discussion. And the answer is very simple. If you believe from the previous sif it's milk, it's basar b'chalav. Basar b'chalav cannot be used to make cheese. Major problem. If it's not milk from the previous sif, it's considered waste, then b'diavad is going to be fine. Why? Even if it's waste, it's cooked with meat, it should be considered meat in halacha? The answer is no. Because it's so gross, it's perpetually pariv forever. And therefore, if it's used to make cheese, b'diavad will be fine. Again, this is all b'diavad. You should not be doing any of this, because once it's sitting there for a while, once it's sitting there for 24 hours, you're now in the world of not good. But b'di'evet, it'll be fine as long as it's not considered milk. So these two sifim are very, very much related. Let's read it through, and you'll see it's not too complex. And then there's the last part of the Ramah that I'm going to hold off, and we'll do that in about 10 minutes. So
Is there no issue with eating something that's considered that gross? Like,
no, it's not. No, it's edible. No, it's edible, but it's halachically, it kills any of the flavor. It's similar, I don't want to give other examples, but we have concepts throughout halacha where it's considered gross in halacha in that after 24 hours, it's no sin tam lefgam, it's still edible. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to not become meat. It's a chiddush. This is, I think, the only time I've ever seen something that basically is so pariv that even if it's cooked with meat, it's still pariv. It's a big chiddush, but so let's see this inside. So we're up to the hakdama of the... Huh? No, I'm saying you let it sit there for 24 hours.
When you first shut down, did you open up something and check it?
Oh, good question. Maybe it was liquid at the time. The Shulchan Aruch talks about that. We'll get to it. The Mechaber says like the Hakdama of the Oz V'Hadar. The Oz V'Hadar says like this: Or kevas behema, the stomach lining of that keva, yesh bechamitzas hapoyeles gibon. It has an enzyme that's actually able to make cheese. That if you take that stomach lining or the curdled milk on top of the stomach lining and put it into milk, it'll make cheese. Similarly, in addition to the stomach lining, if you were to take the milk that's curdled, that's sitting on that stomach lining, it has the same enzyme, and you're able to make cheese out of it. So they have a mamish, they make it very, very simple and very beautiful. He says the purpose of this sif, in sif yud, is are you able to take this milky residue that we discussed previously, after you salted it with the stomach lining, or you let it sit with the stomach lining for 24 hours, are you then able to use that to make cheese? Or is it a problem because after 24 hours it's considered cooked with meat, and then you're taking something that was cooked with meat and making it into basar b'chad, making it into cheese? And then when you take that residue, which potentially was sitting for 24 hours, so it has the flavor of meat, or potentially basar b'chalav, you're making cheese out of it. And there will be a difference between the Mechaber's view and the Ramah's view based on what we learned previously. Hine, nisbar sif hakodem. We already got finished saying in the previous sif, that the milky residue that's found in the stomach lining, is it considered milk or not? We already saw it was a machlokes. The Mechaber shita is that it's not milk at all. Whether it's liquidy or curdled doesn't matter. The Ramah says there's a distinction. If it's liquidy, then it's a problem. It's chalav. If it's curdled, it's waste. Me'ata, now that you have that information, now plug it in. Kol shedina kechalav, if you have a residue that is considered milk in halacha, hare im nimlach oy nichbash im or hakeva, if it was salted or it sat there for 24 hours, bala blias basar, you have milk that essentially was cooked with meat, because after 24 hours it's akin to cooking. So you have milk that was cooking with meat, that is basar b'chalav. You now took a basar b'chalav pile and made cheese out of it. That's a major issue. Nasa kule iser medin chaticha nasas nevela. That is a problem. Chaticha nasas nevela. That milky residue is basar b'chalav mamish, and then if you use that to make cheese, the cheese would have to be. Let's say you take that, as we'll see in a moment. You have a handful. Let's say I took an ounce of this milky residue that was sitting for 24 hours, and I put it into a giant vat of milk. The vat of milk would have to be 60 times the amount that I put in for it to be okay. But if not, it's a major issue because it's basar b'chalav. It's essentially, I took basar b'chalav and put it into this milky residue, into this vat of milk.
We had chanan.
Correct. This is also chanan.
But this is not chanan. This is with the test, with the taf, I mean, rather?
No, chaticha nasas nevela, it's the same thing. Chanan is ches, chaticha nasas nevela, chanan.
Right.
So this is this is because when you take a picture and you convert it using AI, the words get jumbled. So chaticha nasas nevela. Thank you for pointing that out. No. Ubevadai aser lahamid bogvinos, and it's aser to use that concoction to make cheese. Va'af b'diavad yaser kol ma shegivinu boy, and if you do it, it's a problem. But if you hold that it's not milk, like the Mechaber Shita in all situations, or the Ramah if it's curdled, then we can now begin the shaila of, is it going to be a problem b'diavad? There's a possibility. You'll say, well, even if it's pariv, it got cooked with meat, essentially, so it should become basar, and then you use that to make cheese. That's a problem. It says there's a possibility that because it's parish, it's considered waste. The flavor that it got from the meat is putrid. Everything is kind of gross because it's waste. It remains pariv forever, even if it was cooked with meat, essentially. That's the background of the shaila. So the Mechaber Shita is that in all situations, because it's not milk, it's going to be b'diavad fine. The Ramah would tell you if it's liquid and it's sat there for 24 hours, that's basar b'chalav, major issues. If it's curdled, then it'll be fine. So the Mechaber and Ramah agree by curdled, but they disagree by liquids. And again, it's lishi tasam, it's contingent on their shitas in the previous sif. Now let's begin the Mechaber in Shulchan Aruch Sif Yud. We'll do it slowly because I want to incorporate the pieces as we go. The Mechaber says like this: Chalav hanimtza b'keva. If you have milk, again, according to the Mechaber, it does not matter whether it's a residue, it's liquid, it's curdled, it does not make a difference. It's not milk either way. Chalav hanimtza b'keva. If you have milk that's sitting in the stomach lining, first of all, the Mechaber says, don't let it sit there for 24 hours. Again, this is the Ramah, but it's explaining the Mechaber. This is not the Ramah disagreeing. This is still the Mechaber talking. Now, again, if you wait for 24 hours, you've definitely entered the b'diavad world. Don't do that, because once you enter the 24-hour period, they're cooking together, you've essentially cooked waste with meat, and now you have to get into the shtickle Torah that it's still perpetually pariv. It's not good. Then the Mechaber says, the truth is, forget about 24 hours. Even before 24 hours. Don't let it sit in the stomach lining until the animal cools off. However long that takes. Let's say it takes an hour. Don't let it sit there for an hour. Pause. Why not? So if you, yeah. So if you kill the animal, get to the stomach lining quick, because if you let the milk sit there until the animal cools off, it's now b'diavad. Now, why is that? So if you look in a moment, just jump for 1 second to the Shach. The Shach Sivkot and Chavav explains why should you not let it sit in the animal until the animal cools off. I'm just going to call it an hour. Don't let it sit there for an hour. Why? Hatam meforesham shechalav akeva charif v'chomutz sharim amidinbo. This is a good thing to know. The whole concept of 24 hours is called kavush. After 24 hours, it's as if it's cooked together. That is true generally. But if you have a brine that is super pickly, it's super, super potent, you don't need 24 hours. So you should just know this whole concept of like 24 hours, that's by the standard liquids, milk, water, whatever. But if you have a brine, if you take cheese and meat and you put them in a spicy brine together, that is going to be cooked together in halacha way quicker than 24 hours. We'll talk about this later on in Taruvis, the exact time, but the point is things that are potent, it's quicker. So the Mechaber is saying the stomach lining of the animals clearly got some potency. It curdles cheese. Like it's clearly got some potency. Don't let it even get near 24 hours. Don't let it sit there until the body cools off. Fine. Back to the Mechaber. Chalav hanimtza b'keva. You have the milk that's sitting in the stomach line. Lichachila ein lahanicho b'keva. Lichachila, do not let it sit there. Scoop it out before the shaila begins, which is achi itztanin achalav b'toch hakeva. Do not let the milk and the body cool down, because once the body already cools, it's been sitting there too long. So you get it out there quicker. Good. Aval b'diavad. Let's say b'diavad, it's fine. Ein lachush ad shenimach b'kevasai oy she'amad ba yom echad. Now, lichatchila, it's fine. It's even fine. You let it sit there until the body cools off. Fine. It's not mahuder. Fine. The major issue begins when you salted it or you let it sit there for 24 hours. Now, osir lahamidbo. Now, do not use this lichachila to make cheese. Don't do it. Okay. So everyone agrees if it sat there for 24 hours, no good. Do not do it. Now the question is, what if you did? B'diavad, what's the halacha? So the Mechaber Shita is, he doesn't address it because the Mechaber holds b'diavad, it's fine. As we saw previously, the Mechaber's view is it's not milk. And because it's not milk, it's going to be fine. Comes the Ramah, and remember, what is the Ramah Shita? The Ramah Shita is that there's a difference between liquids and curdled. If it's liquids, it's milk. Which means, if it's milk mamish, that means that I had milk that I cooked with meat because it sat there for 24 hours. That's Basar b'chalav mamish, and then you used it to make cheese. Major problems. So says the Ramah, v'im hamidbo, if you ended up using it after 24 hours to make cheese, imhu hatzalul, if it was liquid, so which the Ramah Shita is that it's milk, then osir kol hakvinas. If you use that and you put it into milk and it turned into cheese, it's all osir, ad sheyehei samach b'chalav shehem neged hakeva asura, unless there's 60 times the amount that you put in. Now let me just explain because I'll point this out in a minute. So I took 1 ounce of this. Okay, I took 1 ounce of this and I put it into a vat of milk and it made a giant wheel of cheese. If the cheese or the milk is 60 times the ounce, you're fine because it's batel. But if not, it's a problem. In other words, it's a major issue. But it's batel b'shishim. Now, let's keep going. We'll put that aside. I want to come back to that in a second because I don't want to confuse. I want to finish. Then the Ramah continues. Again, if there's 60 times, it's mutter. But let's say it wasn't liquid. It was a solid in the stomach, which the Ramah Shita is that solid is not milk. It's considered waste. So in essence, I took waste, cooked it with meat, because I sat there for 24 hours, and then I used it to make cheese. The Ramah says, Eino eseres klum, but the evidence is going to be fine. Why? Because the Ramah agrees with the Mechaber that if it's not milk, it's considered waste, and it's considered perpetually parv. It's not considered basar, even though it got cooked with meat. It's so gross, it stays parv forever, and but the evidence is going to be fine. Now, your question, and then pause, and then we'll finish up the Mechaber. Let's say it was liquid when the animal died, and then it's subsequently curdled in the stomach lining. Yesh lo din salul, then it's considered liquid, because it was liquid at the time of death. The yesh makilim bazeh, and some are lenient, because, so I guess the cases where you opened it up right away, you saw it, and then you're like, I'll come back in a couple hours, and then you come back, it's now curdled. So some say it's considered curdled, and some say it's considered liquid in halacha. Ubemakom hefsed yesh lahakol, and in a case of financial loss, you could be lenient. Now, a lot of information. I want to point out one more thing, and then we'll go to a new topic, unless there's questions. One point just to make. I'm going to mention the question, not the answer, because the question I think is a little bit better than the answer. Well, I don't mean better. It's a good question. Yeah. So here's the shaila. I take this liquid. It's liquid. The Ramah Shita is that liquid is milk. In essence, it's milk, yeah? It sat in the stomach lining for 24 hours. So it got cooked with meat. So it's milk and meat. It's an ounce of this. I take an ounce, basar v'chalav. I put it in a giant vat of milk, 200 ounces of milk. Turned it into a giant cheese wheel. Basar v'chalav that made cheese. The Ramah said, if there's shishim, it's fine. Here's the problem. Now, let's say not b'mezid. You did it by accident. You didn't know the halacha. That's fine. Here's the question. Why is that batal b'shishim? There's a rule in halacha which is called davar hamaymid einoi batal. What do I mean is like this. What's the concept of batal? Batal means that when there's 60 times, it disappears, it's gone. Is it disappearing? The molecular change, it's a cheese wheel because of what I did. How could you? I don't care about the ratio. It could be 1 in a billion. The whole premise of bittul is that when it hits 60, I don't even notice it anymore. I notice it. I notice the change. It turned. You know what it's like? It's like if you had food coloring. It was green. I put it in. It's batal b'shishim. The whole thing's green now. So the shach is bothered by this. If you look at the shach in Sifkatan. No, actually, it is a shach, but I quoted in the Badi HaShulchan. The Badi HaShulchan just asked the question. It's a very long shach, but I wanted to focus on the question more so than the answer. The Badi HaShulchan in Sifkat and Kuf Chav Zayin mentions this question. Hikshe hashach, lama mutter. Why is it batal b'shishim? Afilu b'yesh shishim kinegdo. Even if it's batal b'shishim, even if there's 60 times the milk corresponding to the milk, the curdled stuff that you put in, Hare kaimal lekaman davar shel iser shenesarav beiser umaymid oso lo batal. If the item that fell in, even if it's 100 times more, but if it changes the structure of the concoction, it's a maymid. Maymid means that it congeals it, it changes it physically. Lo batal. Because I see the result of it. It's right there. So how is it batal? It's a good question. The question is a little bit better than the answer. We're going to end off we'll end off with the tzarachin. Okay. If you don't mind, I know we threw it a lot. I want to finish this Ramah. And this has some halachic ramifications, somewhat, maybe, in two situations. Okay. You have this stomach lining. I have time before next week to try to figure out how they made cheese in halacha. I always was bothered by this. I don't know if I want to mention what bothered me physically, like the Metzias stick of Shaila, because I asked Rabbanim, and I'm missing something. The way they made cheese historically, the way you could make cheese is you take the stomach lining of an animal and you put it into milk and it'll curdle it. The problem is that's Basar b'chalav. So the way they make most cheese nowadays is they have a chemical that does the same result, not using the actual stomach lining itself. Here's the shaila. I take the stomach lining and I dry it out. And I realize that the shape of this stomach is a perfect canteen. So I dry it out till it's mamish, dry mamish. Can I use it to hold my milk in my bottle? That's the shaila of the Ramah. So the Ramah says like this. No, just stam. Stam, forget about cheese. This is just stam. I dried it out. I was just saying because they use the stomach lining to make cheese. This, you dried it out till it's like rock hard, and then you realize it's like a perfect canteen. It's a perfect bottle.
If it's not going to make cheese, what's the?
Oh.
It's not effective. It's not
So the Ramah writes or hakeva. That's the Ramah, and we'll see about how this has practical ramifications in a moment. Or hakeva. We'll go a little bit later today because I want to finish up. Or hakeva, which is this stomach lining. Lepa'amim, there were times molchanoso miyavshanoso. They would dry it out. Venasa ke'etz, and it became like wood mamish, like mamish rock hard. Umimalanoso chalav, and they would use it as a bottle for milk. Mutter. The Ramah says it's fine. The me'achar shenesyavesh have ke'etz ba'alma, because they already dried it out, and mamish became like wood. Ein boy lachluchas basar. It's not meat. It doesn't have any residue. It's like you said. That it doesn't give off any cheese. It's nothing. It's mamish, dry mamish. Not a problem. You could use that as a bottle for milk. Okay. Turn to the next page if you don't mind on these sheets, but again, it's mostly inside. The Shach just adds 1 point in Sifkat and Lamed Gimel. Hu hadin shar b'nei mayim. It doesn't have to be the stomach lining. It's any innards. You could take the innards of an animal, dry it out, and use it as a canteen to hold milk. Shiyav shenos hashanasa eitz. Okay. Now, quick point to realize, this seems super not relevant, but there's actually two practical ramifications. I did quote from the Oiz V'Hadar, but I'll say it outside, we don't have to see it inside. The Oiz V'Hadar brings down basically two different approaches as to understanding why is this okay. One is that it's so dried out, it won't be able to give off any meat residue into the milk. Second shot is, and this is a chiddush, it got so dried out, it's no longer meat in halacha. If you look inside, actually we'll see it inside. Bibir heter or hakevish and isyavish be'etz. The Oiz V'Hadar brings down. We'll go 5 more minutes. The Oiz V'Hadar brings down the explanation of why is this okay. Yesh bo shnei drachim. There's two different approaches. The Levush and the Pri Megadim say shayivish moshel tisha ba'ar shum lachluchas shenamafled al chalav klum. The first approach I think is the most basic, which is what you said, which is it's so dried out it won't be able to impart any flavor to the milk. Is it still meat? Yeah. Could I take that dried out thing and eat it with milk? No. But it's as a bottle, it's fine. That's the first explanation. The second explanation is from the Noda B'Yehuda. The Noda B'Yehuda and the Chazon Ish actually say it gets so dried out that when something is so dried out it becomes inedible, it's no longer meat. It's no longer meat, and you could potentially take it and, I don't know, eat it with milk. It's a chiddush. Let me tell you, remember that Noda B'Yehuda. Remember that Noda B'Yehuda and that Chazon Ish. Something that gets dried out to the point of being inedible, it's no longer meat. Now, look in the Pischei Tshuva Sifkat and Chaf. The Pischei Tshuva Sifkat and Chaf brings down a shita of the Tferes Tzvi. I saw this once because someone asked me a shaila. Everyone who comes here regularly knows I don't drink. So the one area of halacha, not the one area, that's pretty pops. One of the many areas of halacha that I have no knowledge about is alcohol. I don't know the kashrus stuff. I don't know what they are. So it's not. I'm learning. The people in the shul they're doing their best to teach me, but I'm not very good at it. So someone sent me a shaila that there's apparently some tequilas that have worms in it. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I think you can find them in stores. They actually have non-kosher worms that are sitting in the tequila. The Tiferes Tzvi addresses the shaila, and he writes, I am b'tshuvas Tiferes Tzvi, shekasa b'teiloim adumim, shemiyav shenoso, that they take these worms, dry them out to the point of being inedible, b'tsovin behem mashka, and they put it into liquids because it apparently changes the color. Yayin saraf, mutter. It's mutter. Why? The Tiferes Tzvi is giving a tremendous chiddush, and that is, he is taking the Noid Yehuda and just taking it like a rocket ship. The Noid Yehuda is saying is that you see from this sugya is that if something is dried out to the point of inedibility, it's not meat anymore. Now the Noid Yehuda never said that for chazer. The Noid Yehuda was talking about this. I told you the first time we learned together. Basar b'chalav, they're both heterim. You're not dealing with chazer, it's heter. Says the Tiferes Tzvi, I'll take that and I'll raise you. I'll take your concept, and that is if something is inedible, then it loses its essence. So if you were to take a worm, dry it out to the point where it's inedible, and then let it sit in a liquid, it's fine. It's non-kosher, doesn't matter. It's sitting in the liquid. So one would argue that when something sits in the liquid for 24 hours, it softens up, doesn't matter. The Tiferes Tzvi is mechadish that if you have an isser that loses its essence because it becomes inedible, even if you could try to reconstitute it, the isser is gone. Oh,
We talked about ashes. When you burn,
yeah,
turn into ash.
correct. But if you,
So it's the loss of enough.
I'll counter. If you remember the Ramah, he said it was a chumrah. The Ramah said it was a chumrah. But you know what? It's a good point. The point is, by the way, again, this is a chiddush because he's taking the concept of the Noid Yehuda, but the Noid Yehuda never said this for chazer. The Noid Yehuda was talking about milk and meat, which are heterim. One could argue that by milk and meat, which are mutter, okay, no. So the Tiferes Tzvi is saying, A, it applies to non-kosher as well. B, it'll apply even if it's soaking together. Now, very quickly, I'll just run through the Pischei Tshuva in Chaf Aleph. The Pischei Tshuva in Chaf Aleph brings down that there are those that disagree with the Tiferes Tzvi in both accounts. First of all, most opinions say that is not true for non-kosher. Non-kosher is non-kosher forever. I don't care that it becomes inedible. And number two, even this case of the Ramah, where you took the stomach lining and dried it out, if you were to reconstitute it, you were to boil it and make it edible again, even the Ramah would say it's a problem. So the Tiferes Tzvi is a mamish a chiddush in both regards. I'll just run through it together in Pischei Tshuva. He says, if you go to the third, V'hu adin or hakeva b'bishol, the underlined parts, yesh la'esed misrachich, v'hu adin shri meisleis yesh lahachmer. First of all, he quotes that the Be'er that if you were to reconstitute the stomach lining, it would be a problem. Meaning, it's only okay because it's inedible at this moment. If you were to reconstitute it, you were to boil it, it would be a problem. Ubezen nister mashakasa b'seiv lechem upon him, which is interesting. He says there is a shita lechem upon him. I don't know. I always liked this case. I thought it was funny when I was a kid. When I was learning this the first time, I thought the lechem upon him was funny. The case is because Brad gets this. There would be someone that we would be davening with that would probably, like you'd be like, what are you guys doing? That this guy would do this. The lechem upon him. I'm not actually thinking of anyone specifically. It's just like you're around people. You have a guy who the doctor says that you need to put an animal eye on your finger for medicine purposes. So, of course you do. So you stick it in the eye of an animal. But now you can't get it off. So what do? You need to dip it in something hot. I got hot cocoa. Great. So he took the eye of the animal, which is meat, put it in the hot cocoa, and then it came off. And now he says, of course, I'd like to drink the hot cocoa, as you do. So the question is it a problem of basar b'chalav? Well, it was inedible when it was on his finger, but it was reconstituted when it was in the hot liquid. So according to the Tiferes Tzvi, it's going to be fine. The lechem upon him also says it's fine. And that's not like the Be'er Heitev. But he says at the very end, okay, so that's Bekitzer, but he ends off, I don't want to go through it now, but you'll see it on your own line. But Bekitzer, he says, this Tiferes Tzvi is a tremendous chiddush, that A, when it's reconstituted, it's still mutter, and B, that the fact that it applies to non-kosher as well is a tremendous chiddush, because we have not seen that. Our discussion from the Ramah is from the stomach lining of a cow with milk. They're both heterim. To say that applies to chazer or worms is a very big chiddush. Just to end off the discussion, I did quote from the Start Case website. They have one line: tequilas containing a worm in the bottle should be avoided. Probably, they don't explain the marmakaimis, but now we know the marmakaimis. According to the Tiferes Tzvi, it's allowed. according to everybody else, it's going to be a problem on two accounts. Number one, to extend this to non-kosher is a chiddush, and number two, because it's sitting in the liquid for so long and it becomes softer, one could argue that the isser comes back. I'm not going to go into it now, but you'll read it on your own. On the bottom is also an article from the Star K about gelatin. I didn't want to go into gelatin that much because I think gelatin has been changing as times went on. But if you look in the early shilas of gelatin, like the Cheskel Abramsky has a very famous tshuva that the Tzitz Eliezer quotes in the beginning of like the 4th volume of Tzitz Eliezer in his Akdama, when they would talk about gelatin in food products, does gelatin need a hechsher? Gelatin comes from chazer. Gelatin comes from the marrow of non-kosher animals. And no, it could come, I'm saying, it comes from marrow, so it could come from kosher, but it also used to come from non-kosher. So the heter potentially, now you a little bit understand, in the process of making gelatin, at least it used to be, it became inedible. So it started from a non-kosher animal, became inedible. If you believe like the Tiferes Tzvi, it's going to be okay. It's reconstituted. It's edible now. You're eating it in ice cream. You're extending the Ramah's heter from milk and meat, which both are heter, to chazer, mamish, or nevelas, or trefis. That's why it was a big shiloh when it came out. I don't think it's relevant anymore because I think nowadays the way they make gelatin, it's edible as they're making it. I don't think it goes through the same process that it did in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I tried to look into it a little bit. This is an article from the Star K's website. It seems to be they were addressing it, and they basically said the fact that it comes from a non-kosher source, the heter of that, he quotes 8710. That's our, Ramah in the 8710. He basically says, don't use that Ramah as a heter because this Ramah is dealing with kosher substances that become inedible, and then mixing with milk. This is coming from chazer. And to extend it outside of the Tiferes Tzvi, they don't call it the Tiferes Tzvi, outside the Tiferes Tzvi, nobody does that. So that would be a background to the Shaila. All right, we'll stop here, open to questions happily, and then what we'll do is next week, we'll finish up. And we've gone through the probably the hardest part of Basar B'Cholov, so good job, guys.